this is like it's presented as something that I'm doing for you, but really it's just a captive audience for me to drink beer with and talk about beer and sociology with. So just be ready to nerd out on this. All right, so what are we doing today? So my name is Jacob Miller. I am a professor of sociology here at IU, Indiana University. My dissertation was on the craft beer movement. I study taste and consumption, why we like the things that we like, and what impact does that have on our lives. My dissertation specifically looked at the motivations behind consumption and how those motivations create boundaries between different categories of social life. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but probably more so than that, we're going to talk about perception and how society influences the way that we experience beer. But before we get into that, we'll go ahead and cover some kind of ground, not ground rules, but some basics before we do that. So the first thing, what the hell is sociology? So I highly suspect, I'm sure that some of you are here for the sociology, but I think that the bigger draw is probably the beer. So it's worth asking the question, when you hear the word sociology, what comes to mind? What does that mean for you? And there's not a right or, I'm not grading you on this. There's not a right or wrong answer. My parents still don't know what sociology is. They literally tell people that I'm a psychiatrist. So I let it go. What you got?
I think sociology is asking a room full of people, what does sociology mean?
Yeah. You're on to us. Yeah. So that's good. That's a good answer. Anything else? Yeah.
People and their environment.
People and their environments. Very, very good. We got one more. Come on. One more. Yeah.
Study of human behavior.
Study of human behavior. All of these are fantastic. These are all really good. So if I were to define it, this is how I would set about doing it. It's a scientific discipline. That's the one that I drill into my students' head. This is a science. It's not a philosophy. It's not an ideology. It's a scientific discipline dedicated to exploring the interaction between individuals and society. So I can't remember. We got it, right? We were pretty much right on there. Another way of saying this exact same thing is to say that sociology explores the social causes and consequences of human behavior. And so there's an interaction between these two things, right? Individuals affect society, society affects individuals, and it's a constant interaction between those two things. So when we take this idea of sociology and we apply it to the world of craft beer, we get to this. So the sociology of beer looks at how the consumption of beer both shapes and is shaped by a wide array of aspects of our society and human interaction. And so that's what we're going to do today. And to start this off, if you have a flight, that's great. If you don't have a flight, that's also fine. We have this here just as an excuse to drink beer, but also to give us something to communicate, to talk about. So we're going to start out with a little bit of a tasting here. And if you have a flight, you probably went with either a dark flight or a light flight. Because I'm giving the talk, it was necessary for me to do both. It's the sacrifice that I have to take for science. So what I want us to do here, and if you don't have a flight, if you have a beer at all, or even if you have a non-alcoholic beverage, I want you to approach this. I want us to consume whatever it is that you have in front of you and analyze how, try to examine the flavors that you're getting there. This is a blind tasting specifically because I want to remove information from you, because I'm trying to encourage you to approach this differently than when you normally drink a beer. One of the big things that we do in sociology is join us. One of the things that we do in sociology is examine the taken for granted. And so what this activity is intended to do is to encourage you to approach this thing that is very taken for granted. We just go and we sit down and we drink beer all of the time, and to approach it from a slightly different way to where you might experience it differently. And so what I would suggest doing is I've got some sheets out on the table. So if you want to If you want to take notes, I would encourage you to do so. But go through and drink what you're drinking. And these are the things that you should focus on. First, what are the flavors that you are experiencing? What flavors, if anything, are you experiencing? Other things to think about is, do you like it? Do you like what you're tasting or not? One of the beauties of doing a flight is that you get to do comparisons. If I'm ever leading a tasting for people that don't like beer, that say that they don't like beer, one of the things I do is, one of the ways that you can encourage people to develop a taste for beer is you can give them beers and say, I know that you don't like this, but rank them. And as soon as your brain starts to put things into order, you start to see, well, what is it that I like about this? And what do I don't like, what do I not like about this? And that automatically gets you to start experiencing different parts. So we'll start doing this, and I'll give you a moment to take some notes, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it here in a moment. I am also legitimately taking part in this. I had Jeff randomize this. This is a double-blind. This is double-blinded. I had him write down. I know which beers are there. I don't know which beer is which. So he put it here, and once we're done, I'm gonna open this up, and I'll be as surprised as you are. So. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit. You're like, we're already talking about it. Let's talk about it with me. So we'll start with the people that have the dark flight. What were things that you tasted in this? Like, what were the flavors that you were getting on any of these beers? What was your experience of the dark beers? Malt. All right. How would you describe malt to somebody that doesn't know what malt is?
Do they know what cereal is?
All right. That's good. That was a very good question. Yeah. Cereal. All right. Yeah. Other things. What'd you pick?
Nutty.
Nutty. All right. Yeah. So nuts.
Dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. Very good. Coffee. Yeah, that's a big one. And
Guinness without the nitro.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we don't. None of these are on. Yeah. I guess not on nitro this time. Yeah. So Guinness. Yeah. We'll put that in there. Yeah. So these are all pretty straightforward on these. Anybody get anything weird like that's not in here that you think is maybe vastly different from what other people would think?
Dirt.
Just dark.
Dirt.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the kind of stuff that I love.
I was gonna say like herbs.
Yeah. Herbs. Yeah. Or maybe herbal. Yeah. Herbs, yes, yeah, very, very good. Fascinating stuff. All right, so let's switch over to the light beers. So for those of you that had the light flights, what kind of flavors are you picking up with that? Fruit, right. Any specific fruit or just fruit? Apple, oh yeah, that's good. Anything else?
It's got the word sharp.
Sharp? Oh, that's good. Yeah, God, I love. Yeah. Sharp. Yeah. Like angular.
The bite of the champagne.
Oh, yeah. So there are a couple of things there. So like a bite and maybe a champagne. Hoppy. Yeah. All right. Anything else? We got anything that's kind of weird. What?
One of them's malty too.
Malty. Oh, so you start to get the malty on that too. Yeah.
I'll put copper in the mix.
You say copper?
Copper, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, copper. Citrus. Very good. Smooth. Did you say spit? Oh. Did you see how excited I got? Spit? I like the weird stuff. Smooth. That sounds bad, but I'm not gonna. I get excited with different anyway, I got it. You see, as like a professor, this is what happens in my classes. I'm like, oh, I need to dig myself out of this hole, and then I continue to dig myself deeper. All right, like spit. I love spit. No, smooth. What metal? Yeah, and so a metallic. Yeah, so we're getting that with the copper, and then just in general metal. That's good. Yeah. Anything else? Let's see. Can we get two more? Can I press for two more? You're like, no. That is. Okay, yeah.
That's skunky.
Skunky. All right. right. Do you hear that, Jeff? No, I'm sure. All right. So these are gay. So these are all fascinating, and the reason why I got excited with some of the more odd stuff is that it gets at kind of one of the things that I want to talk about, which is a lot of times people are intimidated by tastings. They're intimidated by craft beer. They're intimidated by things like wine tastings. Anytime we're doing these tastings, because they think that there's a correct answer. There's a right thing that we've got to get, and that they're not going to have the right answer. And one of the things that we're going to try to talk about today is the fact that there isn't a right answer. Your tastes are your tastes. You taste the copper, right? And you taste the coffee or the dirt, right? And that's a valid experience. Even if nobody else in the world tastes the thing that you taste, that is still a valid response, and it's a valid way of interpreting the experience that you're having. Any guesses on, does anybody, like, I haven't told you which beers are in the flights yet, but anybody have guesses on what the beers are? Yeah. Okay, for number one?
Yes.
Yeah.
For one light.
Yeah. Any guesses on the beers that are in your flights? Again, I just went through and said, you know, what I love about this is that there's no right or wrong answers, and then I immediately go to something where there is a right or wrong answer. You're like, you asshole. No. Anybody willing to take a guess? Yeah.
The first one is the stout.
So, the first one is the stout. Okay, yeah. You're like, no. All right. So this is good. So I'll go ahead and tell you we'll start it out. We're going to do this in stages. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the actual beers that are in this. So for the dark beers here, we have an American Stout, a dark Czech lager. The Winter Doppelbock is the one that I threw in. That's kind of the weirder one. And then the Dunkel. These are not the order that they're in. I don't know the order of them yet. We'll find that out. Yeah. These are just I want you to have some kind of idea about what's in there. For the lighter beers, there's an American Pale Ale, a Vienna Lager, a West Coast IPA, and the Czech Pilsner. I specifically left out the hazy IPA because that one was too obvious. Like, you're just like, okay, well, one of these is hazy. So, but here's what we got. So now, the moment of truth. I have my list. I put it up. I wrote it out earlier, so we'll see how good I am at this. At distinguishing it. So, and the results are in. The winner is Moonlight. No. All right. So, number one for the light beers. We're going to start with the light beers because that's what I saw first. Number one is the Vienna. It's the Vienna Lager. Lager. Oh, I switched there. Lager. The Vienna Lager. That's how they talk in Vienna. The second one for number two. Anybody got a guess on number two?
West Coast.
Okay, West Coast. The Pale Ale? Any others? I promise I'm not like leading. I'm just curious. Pale Ale? Right. It is the American Pale Ale for number two. Yeah. You're wrong. Give me back your beer. Next up for number three. So the West Coast IPA. Again, you can tell from a number of different ways. One of them is probably color. And then that leaves the last one, which would be the Czech Pilsner. All right, so if we switch to... Yep. I got an A. It's similar when I give tests to my students. I always tell them, I took the test, I got a 100, so I think you're going to be fine.
Grade yourself.
I just did. You're getting an F. No. Don't talk back to the teacher. All right, so going on to the dark beers. Any guesses on this? So we had for the, okay, this is mine. Ooh, I got one wrong. Not a perfect. Oh. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's start out with this one. Number one was the stout, right? So we got that correct. So you get your beer badge back. I lose mine. Number two was the Dunkel. Number three was the dark Czech, and number four was the Doppel. I confused the Dunkel and the Stout. I never would have guessed that. In my mind, I was like, you don't get to say anything because you didn't do the test. When you were doing this, when you were doing this, what did you use in order to make those distinctions? Like, how did you know which was which? Experience. Oh yeah, so that's one of it. But how does experience help you in making those determinations? Yeah.
When you hear something like Winter Doppelbock, you're expecting, those winter spices.
So part of it's just like the descriptor, right? Yeah. So maybe if it's something like winter, again, if we had the hazy in here, we would have all definitely gotten the hazy immediately, right? Any other things? Yeah.
You tell yourself that you don't like something, so I was like, that one's gross.
Yeah.
That's the one I don't like.
Yeah, and did it work for you? The weird thing is when you do that and then it doesn't turn out. I've done a blind taste testing where one of my very favorite beers of all time, St. Bernardus Abbot 12 was in the list, and I went through and I'm like, I will immediately know this because I've drank so much of it. And then I was like, I drank one, I'm like, this is it, 100%, no question, and it was the Chimay. I got it wrong, and I was like, I cannot believe like this is my favorite beer. Yeah.
But every batch is
A little bit different, but yeah, absolutely. So there's where we are. So I want to talk a little bit about this because, as we were saying, when you experience things, we're going to have different answers, and part of this goes down to how humans process sense data. How we process the information that is coming into us. Because here's the thing, our senses are not actually that great, right? We think we have a very good understanding of the external reality. The actual data that we get is garbage. We get really bad. We got to make a lot of assumptions. We got to really we don't have a direct connection to anything external to ourselves. Rene Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Because that was the only thing that he could say for certain. Because everything else is just conjecture, right? I can't even say that you guys exist because I don't have that. My senses don't give me a direct connection to that. Even that said, even as crappy as our senses actually are about telling us about the external award, there's still a lot of information. There's still way more information than any of us can actually process. So when you are experiencing the world, if it be it from sight, sound, smell, any of your senses, but definitely with taste, all of these, you can think about all of these different lines as being different bits of data that you are receiving. Your brain cannot process this much data. It's just white noise at that point. And so what you do is when you experience this wide array of sense data, your brain filters it. It tries to say, what is the important bits? What are the pieces that I need? And then you are going to experience those things. But what you actually experience is this tiny, tiny little subset of the information that is actually coming into your brain. There is some very fascinating research that looks at what we call the social construction of drug experiences. If you were to, this is going to sound really bad. I was going to say, like, if you were to take LSD without noticing it, that would be the real experiment. It's like I promise, no drugs in any of the, no drugs in any of the beer. But if you were, no. What would, if you were to take LSD, what would you expect? Like, what are the effects on the body that you would expect to have? Seeing colors, hallucinations. Anything else?
Euphoria.
Yeah, euphoria. So we have these kinds of lists of things that we would look for. Here's like a weird kind of autobiographical thing. When I was in high school, I went to a party that was a bunch of older people, and I accidentally took LSD without realizing it. I had a starburst at a Halloween party with my brothers, my college-age brother went to a thing, and I didn't know that had happened. And so here's the part of this that's weird is I did not put it together that's what had happened. I experienced it as anxiety. I experienced it as a bunch of like that I'm anxious, and like maybe it's just the night, I'm in a new environment. I am thinking too much about things. Did not experience any visuals or anything like that. Right up into the point that I heard somebody mention something about LSD. And as soon as I made that connection, then I started to experience visuals, right?
Is this why you're a sociologist?
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot of reasons probably. But I had never taken that before. This was just a freak accident that happened. But based on my expectations, I did not experience the things that I was primed to experience. And you will find that across different cultures, people experience substances differently. The way that we experience drunkenness, there are physiological things that are happening in our body, right? You would say that is as direct and biological as you could possibly be. The functioning of your body is different based on what is the chemicals that are the chemical processes that are happening there. However, because of this, what's happening with filtering the data, your expectations are going to influence how you experience it. And so this is an essential part of consumption of anything, right? And so a lot of times when you talk about beer, a lot of people don't immediately like beer, right? How many of you, the first time that you had beer, didn't like it? Exactly, right? And we could probably expand this to other things. I'm assuming that you like it now. They're like, I still hate it. They forced me. I was here for the sociology. I don't even know. But most of us don't. And so what do we call it when we have something like that? You don't like it at first.
Acquired taste.
Acquired taste, right? What are some other examples of an acquired taste? Coffee, right? So classic things. Why, can anybody put on your sociological hat based on the things that we've talked about? What would be a possible sociological explanation for why the first time that you drink beer, you might not like beer? You got it? Unexpected. What might you be expecting when you drink something? When you drink anything, right? Especially when you're a kid, when you are growing up and you're drinking any whatever you're going to drink. What do you expect from that? Sweet, right? Or at least neutral, right? We don't expect bitter. Right? All of the instincts in your head are telling you somebody's trying to poison me, right? But then what happens is once you develop the expectation that this thing is supposed to be bitter, and you accept that, then you start to be able to see other elements of it, right? And so we see this kind of trend here. We grow up expecting sweet beverages, right? But at a certain point, we experience these other things. And now when I drink beer, one of the things that we talked about is sweet, right? This is a very sweet beer. It's malty, right? It's light. I was just we were having a conversation here about when I first started drinking, one of the first beers that I had was a Guinness. And I remember thinking, I almost couldn't drink it. It was too bitter, right? Now when I drink a Guinness, I'm like, this is cloyingly sweet. I still love Guinness. Guinness is a great beer. But I would never say that it's bitter now. Guinness is the same. They haven't changed the recipe since I'm old, I'm not that old, right? They haven't changed the recipe on it. I have changed, and my expectations have changed. And so expectations are a very important part of the consumption act. If you are around pretentious circles where people take what we're doing very, very serious, I know, yeah, you're like, I would never. As we're in a sociology of beer lecture, you will occasionally in the craft beer community come across guidelines for how to drink a beer. And you're like, I'm pretty sure I knew that really early on. And we're like, nope, 5 steps. 5 steps. If you're doing less than 5 steps, you're doing it wrong. So here are the 5 steps that are traditionally talked about when we talk about how to drink a beer. First of all, you don't start with drinking. You're like, it says drink in the title. But the first thing that you do is you look at the beer. And people will say this is pretentious, right? You get out your beer and you're like, But that is part of the experience, right? This is a beautiful thing that you are seeing here, right? It's got a color, it's got a clearness. You can look at the lacing of the foam. There's all of these things, and that is an enjoyable experience. And so when you drink beer, part of the enjoyable aspect of it is looking at it. In addition to just the visual aesthetics of looking at a beautiful thing that we have created here, it also preps you for what to expect. What things can you predict about the flavor based on the appearance? Anything? The texture, right? The mouthfeel. Nobody likes to use that word, but we're going to say it. Mouthfeel. The mouthfeel, like, yeah. So you can look at it, and if it has legs, as we say, if you bend it, and it looks like there's an oily substance on the side of the glass, that's a sign that it's thick, right? That it's the gravity is high in it, so it's got a lot of kind of viscosity to it. Other things that appearance can help you predict. Yeah.
If it's got a thick head, you
Yeah.
expect that's going to taste a little bit different.
Yeah. So the foam might expect it, and the type of foam. I was mentioning earlier Saint Bernardus, which is a Abbot 12, which is a Trappist Belgian quad. One of the things that Belgian beers are known for is their natural carbonation, and the specific yeast that they use in Belgian beers produces really tiny bubbles, but they're not like soft bubbles, they're like hard bubbles, right? So it's like they have like this kind of crisp taste to them, like this crisp carbonation with a very specific type of bubble in it. And when you look at it, you can see it. And so like when I look at a Belgian beer, even if I don't know that it's a Belgian beer, I could probably guess it based just on the carbonation, right? Other things, light beer versus dark beers, that can often tell you when you're looking at a dark beer, like this might be bitter. It still might, I might be wrong, it might be sweet, but you're going to get information from that. Again, we're talking about these. I already guessed before drinking that this was going to be the West Coast IPA because it looks like a West Coast IPA. And so the first thing that you do is you look at the beer, and this gives you a kind of sense about what it is, what you can expect when you actually go to drink it. The second thing that you do, we've already touched on this a little bit, you swirl. That's not just to look fancy, that's to do a couple of things. One is to look and see how thick the beer is, right? You do the same thing with wine and with whiskey, right? It'll give you a sense about like what is the viscosity of this thing that I'm about to drink here, right? Another thing that it does is it breaks the surface tension, and it allows the nose, like you can smell it, right? It brings out the smells, so you can smell if there's hops there or whatever's in there, and so you can start to do that. Which brings us to the next one: smell. Take a few short sniffs, then a couple of long ones. Those are going to give you different aspects of the nose on the beer. The short sniffs are going to give you some elements of the smell. The long one is going to give you a different one, right? A huge part of our experience of taste is not actually taste at all. It's smell. Our brain mixes those things together, right? If your nose is stuffed up, my nose is perpetually stuffed up. I had to take a nose spray before doing this. I can't taste well, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to drink a good beer. I better have my sinuses working, right? The next thing that you do, finally, think about it. We're on step 4, and we're just now making it to taste, right? You take a sip. You don't take a gulp. You take an initial sip. One of the best ways I've heard this described was somebody that was explaining how to drink whiskey. And they said, what you're doing is you are introducing yourself to the beer. When you meet somebody for the first time, you don't just immediately start making out with them, right? You got to at least say, hi, my name is whatever, right? You slowly introduce yourself to the person, and you learn a little bit about them, and you decide, you learn what to expect from this person, right? And maybe you'll develop this situation, it'll develop, and you'll have that's, okay, we're gonna stop that one. Luckily, I'm not. I feel less like I'm about to get fired here than I am in my actual classes. Finally, we really got to get off of that thing. You get to the last step, which is to truly savor it, right? This is the point at which you are drinking a little bit more vigorously, and you are combining all of these things, right? This to me improves the experience of drinking beer. This is a beautiful thing that we are doing when we do all of these steps. I say that while also acknowledging that it is very pretentious. It is extremely pretentious. For those of you who have been drinking beer for a while now, if you go all the way back to the Iron Age of 2015, there was a Budweiser ad during the Super Bowl. Does anybody remember this? This was the time when they were like, okay, craft beer is getting a little bit too big in itself, so we need to bring them down a notch. And there was an entire Super Bowl ad in which they made fun of how pretentious craft beer people were. And they're like, look at this guy with this with this hipster mustache smelling his beer. Why don't you just drink it? I mean, like, this is like really what the actual commercial was. And I bring this up because it's worth acknowledging the fact that this is something that you are likely to contend with. It can feel very artificial and it can feel kind of pretentious to be consuming something in this way. And you're like, why don't you just shut up and drink the beer, right? Like what is the purpose here? And this kind of permeates a lot of how people think about the ways that we consume. A lot of they're very excited about it. The research backs this up as well. So if we look at studies of social status in drinking, you can see here I've switched. I'm being traitorous, and I have a picture of wine here. That's because the early studies on this focused primarily on wine. First of these was a study from 1997 with the very, very easy to roll off the tongue estimation of a hedonic price equation for Bordeaux wine. Thank you for that. Science. What this study did was it looked at people who were drinking wine in a laboratory setting. And they gave people wine to sample, and they said, they gave them like little cards that said, the price of the wine and what region it was from and all of this stuff. One of the things that they measured is that in blind taste testing, price didn't predict rating. So when you didn't tell people the price, there was no correlation between how much a wine cost and how much people liked it. As soon as you told people a price, and you could make it up, it wasn't necessary, they were experimentally controlling this. When tasters knew the wine's identity and price, expensive wines received higher evaluations. So when you tell somebody that something is expensive, they are more likely, statistically speaking, to say this is the better one. How do you think people interpreted these findings? What do you think this tells you about drinking wine or beer or whatever it is?
Influenced by social pressure.
It's influenced by social pressure. One of the things people said is it's all bullshit. Everybody's lying. All these fancy people selling their beer, they're making it up. They're just putting on a show. What happened after this is that more studies began to look at this. So we have marketing actions can modulate neural representations of experienced pleasantness. Thank you, academics, right? So this is what they did here. So they did the exact same experiment, but this time they had them where they were monitoring their brain waves. And so they actually measured the physiological responses to drinking the wine.
You mentioned priming earlier.
Yeah. So participants consistently rated the more expensive wines as tasting better. Same findings as the previous one. But the brain scans showed that greater activity in the medial orbital frontal cortex, nailed it, a region linked to experiencing pleasure, there was more activity there. So when we actually do brain scans of people, when they are drinking what they think of as a more expensive wine, they experience it is better. Like it is measurably better. The experience is measurably more enjoyable to the person. They're not faking it. It's real. They are actually experiencing it differently. And so based on that and based on what we kind of were talking about earlier with all of the different data that we're getting in, our expectations of the beer impact which flavors we're going to pick out. And if we're expecting something to be better and higher quality, then we're going to be looking for those aspects of it. And we can probably find it because, again, the spectrum of things that you are tasting in there, it's wide, right? And there's probably things that you don't like. There's probably things that you do like. Your expectations of it, you're going to focus on things. So part of it could be, we were talking about this the other day, part of it could be placebo, right? So part of it is that they're just convincing themselves that it's better, but it could also be the fact that they are actively experiencing aspects of that beer or wine that other people are not. And so what's the takeaway from this? There's a lot, right? One is that how things are presented can influence the experience of it. You know, we have specialized glassware for the craft beer movement. In my own research, when I was looking at the differences between traditional American beer like Budweiser and Coors and the craft beer movement, one of the things that people always talked about is like, well, we use specific glassware and you know, we approach it differently. That, it does a number of things. One is it encourages you to use your other senses, to go through those 5 steps that we were talking about. It encourages you to do that. But it also, it makes the event a little bit more fancy and a little bit more special. And that in and of itself can have an impact on it. And part of the drinking experience is the people that we're around. This is a ritual that we are taking part in. And it's the people that you're around. If you are around people that you like, you're going to like the whatever you're drinking more, right? If you're around people that you hate, I'm sorry I ruined the experience of beer for you all of the time. It's a miracle you still drink beer. Switch to Diet Coke. That's good. That can influence it as well. This is why, so my background, in addition to being a sociologist, my minor was in marketing. This is why packaging and stuff matters, right? The way that you package something, it sparks the way that people are going to think about what they're consuming, and it can actively affect how they experience that. A little bit more on this act of consumption. Thus far, we've been talking just about perception, but I want to kind of expand this into more of the stuff that sociology has to say about consumption. When we talk about consumption, we talk about it as a consumptive act. It's not just drinking, right? We've already said that there were 5 steps. To the sociologist, there's even more steps than that. Because when you drink a beer, you're not just drinking the object, you're drinking the ideas and connotations and associations that go along with it. When I talk to people about craft beer and their experiences within the craft beer community, I always ask them, like, what do you think of as different from this? Or what differentiates craft beer from traditional American beer? And they say, well, if I'm drinking Budweiser, I'm drinking to get drunk. If I'm drinking craft beer, I'm drinking it for the experience, right? I'm drinking it for, and again, you're like, pinkies up, you're just being pretentious. But like, no, like that, when we consume it, this is an aspect of identity. And so in addition to when we consume anything, be it clothing or movies or TV shows or music or beer, in addition to consuming that thing for its supposed intended purpose, we're also consuming identities, and we're consuming other things. There's a lot more than just the object itself, and so with beer in particular, I always describe craft beer as a beer in particular, and then craft beer also as a particularly potent vehicle of meanings. What are the things that you associate with beer? We'll start with beer just in general. What are your connotations and associations with beer? What?
Rednecks.
What? Well,
Rednecks.
Rednecks. All right. So you're right. I think we're. Yeah. Well, this is funny because when I ask people for terms that they use to describe traditional American beer, a lot of them will say NASCAR beer. So there's a lot of really interesting class connotations and stuff with how we talk about. Yeah. Well, lower class and upper class, depending upon what you're doing. So like with craft beer, there's like this big move to like establish it as this high class thing.
But there's still a barrier there.
Yes, yeah. It's very complex.
On the other side, though, if you're not in the U.S. and not thinking about it, you're thinking about traditions that go back literally half a
Tradition, yeah.
or further, from some of these breweries that have been around since the 1600s.
Absolutely. So when you're in Europe, you go to local breweries, and it is like, this is the beer that we've been brewing for hundreds of years now. The brewery has been around here forever. This is the traditional beer that we have, and they're amazing beers. I'm going to speak highly of Heartwork here. One of the things that stands, I always say that Heartwork has better beer than we have any right to expect in Bloomington, Indiana. And I think that one of the reasons why is they put a lot of attention into the water quality, that they use reverse osmosis, and they specifically dial in the specific minerals that go into the water to reproduce these styles. A lot of the German style beers here, they remind me of actual German beers from when I was in Europe, right? And the thing about those is there's not like the high status, there's not like the craft beer fanciness of it there, but it is like I mean, everybody drinks the same beer, but the quality is there, right? And there's an interesting class component to that. In the United States, much more of a distinction between traditional American beer and the craft beer. What are some other connotations and associations, meanings that you have with it? Yeah.
It's masculine.
Masculine, yes. So gender is, I have in my dissertation, one of the entire chapters had to do with the gender divide. So you're saying that beer traditionally is masculine. Would you say that the same applies to craft beer?
Sure.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
I think it breaks down by the type when it comes to craft beer. Like, as a woman, if you say, "Do you have any recommendations?" you're more likely to get recommended a sour.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. If we were to think about styles of beer, which styles of beer would you say were masculine beers? Darker beers. So maybe the stouts.
They're sweeter.
Yeah. So maybe they're sweeter. What would be the more feminine beers?
Fruited sour.
Fruited sour, right? Yeah. Okay. So this is good. We're gonna jump ahead real quick. I've got some data from my research that I did, but this ties into it very well. So we're gonna so when I studied craft beer, one of the things that I was very interested in was this idea that we think of, especially beer in general, but also the craft beer movement, as this masculine thing. But one of the things that I found is that when I went to these events, the breakdown was not as extreme as I would have thought. I did counts. One of the things that I would do is when I went to an event, I would pick a spot towards the front of the thing, and then I would count as people came in, and I would keep track of gender, or perceived gender. So I kept tallies about what the perceived gender breakdown of the event was. Going in, I was expecting it to be very, very heavily slanted towards men and not towards women. This is roughly what it was, about 60-40, right? Which is a lot more equal than what I would have guessed. This is even slanted because there's a difference in the higher, the more snobby and intense you get, a lot of times it can skew even more masculine because there's more of a investment into it, like when you're spending like larger amounts of money. Also, yeah.
I'm just curious, how many possibly just drug their spouse or partner?
So this is one of the things, because there was previous research that I just assumed that out of nowhere. They just said, like, probably the women are being drugged there. And so one of the things that I did is, in addition to doing the counts, I actually, so this is from the people that I actually conducted surveys with. So I was able to ask them about how much of a drinker they were. And I, in addition to surveys, I also did interviews. And one of the things that I found is it didn't appear that was the case. A lot of the women said, no, like I drug my partner here, like I drugged the guy here. I'm the one that's in this. So out of 357 survey respondents, 138 were women, 219 were men. And I asked them this question. I asked them, what would you consider to be a masculine beer and what would you consider to be a feminine beer? And you can see very much kind of what we were saying here. So I asked both men and women. You can see that men and women answer the largely the same. There's not a wide variance in what they consider to be masculine and feminine. But everybody's like, stouts and porters, those are masculine. Even IPAs, especially like the more bitter IPAs, they're like, that's masculine. The more intense beers, they described as masculine. When you get to the lighter beers, less so, right? We also have this really interesting, the people that refused questions. I had a large segment of people that anytime you brought up gender, they're like, no, I'm not answering that. They would get angry for different reasons. It's fascinating, yeah.
Can you break this down by alcohol content?
You could. I didn't do that in my analysis, but it did show up in the interviews. So I have some data on that. Yeah.
Compared to what they actually drink.
Yeah, we're getting there. This is another wild thing. Other people had done this, but the other research up to this point hadn't actually measured what people actually drink. Did you have a question?
To comment on the gender
Yeah.
thing. So I don't drink.
Yeah.
So we'll go out and still order a beer, and they bring it to me.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And that was a very common experience among the women that I interviewed for this. They're like, oh, every time I go out to drink. So I asked a similar question about the feminine beers, and we see a very similar thing, right? It skews to the right. So the lagers and the pilsners, the wheats and the blondes, the sours, the fruit beers, these are considered the feminine beers. So then I finally asked the same group of people, what are your favorite beer styles? Can anybody notice something fascinating about this? There is, when you run the data on it, you can see there's some differentiation here. There is no statistical difference between, in my survey, there was no statistical difference between the tastes and beer styles of men versus women. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, so gender is a very, very interesting aspect. So we've talked about two different things. Let me make sure I'm not running over in time. We got a little bit more. Some interesting stuff to talk about. From a sociological standpoint, we're talking about the connotations that we have with beer. We've mentioned class and we've mentioned gender. And when you look at beer historically, both of these things play an important role in the history of beer. If you look at class, beer it is fundamentally tied to the working class. You often hear people talk about the workers who built the pyramids were paid in beer. Like that's what they were paid in. The styles like the English mild, which is a low alcohol style beer, I love it. Heartwork does one from time to time. Always makes me happy. That was a beer for workers. It was for them to drink while they were working. It was low alcohol content so that they could get the work done without getting too liquored up. If you look at the Belgian tradition of beer, Belgian beers were brewed in monasteries. And brewed by monks. And they would have the quads, which the monks themselves wouldn't drink the quads. They would make that and sell that. They drank the potter's beer, the father's beer, which was a much lower alcohol content beer that they drank as part of like their work, right? When we move to, into the modern era, and we're talking about the United States, craft beer is fundamentally tied to a lot of industry, right? We have the craft beer, or we have the beer industry. And it was also tied to like the average worker. The idea was that when you get off work, what do? You go and you get a drink with your friends, right? So we have those connections to working class. And a lot of these connections, you'll see, I've been talking about workers. All of this time, I've been talking specifically about men, male workers in most of these instances. And so in addition to it being tied to class, it's also tied to gender. But here is a fascinating thing. I talked about the workers getting paid in beer that built the pyramids. Who made that beer? It was women. It was a part of a religious tradition in which the god of beer was a woman, right? And so the priestesses were the ones who brewed the beer. We talked about in England where it was the workers drinking the British mild, the English mild. Who made that beer? It was the first brewers throughout Europe. The first brewers were women because brewing was considered to be a form of cooking. It was tied to the household. You see the shift from beer being made by women to being made by men right at the time where production started to be increased. As soon as you needed to have property in order to be able to produce beer. Then it shifted towards the men doing it. As soon as it was like, oh no, there's money involved, and like, no, we'll take over this, ladies, right? Like that's what it is. And as I'm saying this, I'm presenting it as though it's like, well, the women were making the beer, but the men were still the ones that were drinking the beer. No, like during all of these things, women would drink beer as well. Well, in the Egyptian thing, it's complicated. But throughout history, women have also been consumers of beer. When you think about traditional American beer, as masculine as you can get, the Budweiser, and you've watched all the commercials where it's all, objectification of women and all of this, the American Pilsner was designed explicitly for women. The six-pack is an American invention designed because who was buying the beer? It was women, right? They were the ones going to the store that were doing the groceries, and so they needed it. They're like, it used to be that it was always sold in these big cases. The women didn't want to carry these heavy things. So they started to create six-packs that women could easily carry. Post-Prohibition is when we see the rise of the light American Pilsner. Before that, we had craft beer, all of the beer that we had the European styles, a very wide range. It was only after Prohibition that we started to see this kind of narrowing down of what traditional beer in the United States was, where it became lighter, less strong, less intense. That was designed explicitly to appeal to what men thought women were wanting. Because it was seen as though the prohibition was driven by a women's movement. And so they're like, we need the women on board because we don't want to go back to prohibition. So we need to make beers that are light and dainty for the women. Again, that could be argued whether or not that was a good strategy. But it was fundamentally the beer that we have is shaped by that. The last little bit that I want to talk about, which I want to just touch on really, really quick, and then we'll kind of just open it up to questions if we want, is... I'm not going to go into it too much, is the idea of third spaces and the ritual of drinking. One of the things that I'm fascinated with is the glue that holds our society together. And you're like, it's not doing very, I think the glue is running out. And this is true, but there's reasons for this. The glue that holds society together is ritual. Ritual can take a lot of different forms. Historically, it has been like things like religion, but also, pledge allegiance to the flag. It can be like nationalism. All of these things where we get together with other people and we go through a ritualized set of acts and we reaffirm our connection to the people around us. That is what holds society together. Another example of ritual that I always talk about in my classes is even just an inside joke among your friends. When you have an inside joke among your friends, that is you create this symbol. You create this thing that we call an emotional battery. You create this thing that stores up positive emotional energy. And so when you're around these people, you say this joke, it typically arises out of fun with your friends. And once it's there, you have this magical tool that you can just bring it out, say the stupid joke, and everybody laughs. And it's like a way of combining it. Of connecting you to the people around you. It's this battery that you can expend to create a bond with people in a short-term period. But then the connection that you share with those people in that moment recharges the battery. And then later on, you can bring that joke back out. It's only when you stop activating these emotional batteries that those bonds begin to break, right? And you drift apart. The act of drinking is historically a very powerful ritual. Be it coffee, be it beer, be it wine. Think about the instances when we drink any kind of substance. If it be like getting beer with your friends after work, or drinking champagne to celebrate the new year, or even in religious ceremonies where you're drinking wine. The act of consumption is this fundamentally ritual act. And one of the things that we focus on in sociology is the idea of third spaces, which is not work, not home, but the times when you're around other people. This is an area that is quickly shrinking. In the United States and probably the world over, we have fewer and fewer third spaces. the local brewery is one of the greatest places it's one of the few remaining third spaces that we have. All right, that's it. Thank you so much. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk to you, but we're out of our time here. Thank you so much. Yeah.
How do the aesthetics of third spaces influence our experience with taste?
How does
the way the third space is designed?
So this would probably tie into
Wooden tables and like.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of context that we're given about like what is the purpose of what we're doing. When you go to a craft brewery, you're being primed to think that this is about tasting and it's about like we have samplers, we have flights. You don't get flights at a traditional. What are you comparing? Like we've done blind taste testings. We've done blind taste testings of traditional American pilsners, and we're all like, yeah, they all taste the same. And so the aesthetics kind of guide that kind of the way that we consume things. We probably, I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say we consume less in the craft beer space. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but we say that it's true. Yeah.
What does this hybrid of like a third place plus the academic overlap look like for you as a classroom setting?
Okay, wait a minute. Can you repeat that? Yeah, can you restate that? I guess.
So you're like entering this third space.
Yes.
With an academic perspective. With the knowledge you're sharing.
Yeah.
What does this look like versus approaching an academic setting like a classroom?
Yeah, so this is a fascinating thing, and it's something that made me really excited to give this talk. I thought that this talk was going to be successful. I would say this was a success, but I think that I don't know if this is answering your question directly, but I'll try to work around to this. I think that the setting of a craft beer brewery is already primed for nerds. Sorry to out you, but you came to a sociology talk. And so I think that there is already, when I talk about my favorite styles of beers, I often call them essay beers, because the idea is that when you drink them, you are like tearing it apart. It's not just like, I'm going to throw this back and be refreshed or be drunk or whatever. It's that this is something to engage in and talk about. And so I think there's already an affinity between academia and this type of setting. I have given similar talks at, last year I did what's called a mini IU thing, where it's sponsored through IU, but it's for the general public. But I did that on campus, and I talked kind of about some of these things, but we didn't have the opportunity to have beer in that setting. So I think that definitely affects it. I feel this was a much more fun one to have. Yeah.
There's a book that came out several years ago called Bowling Alone.
Yes, that's about third spaces. Yeah.
Yeah. So the premise of it is that Americans are bowling more as like solo instead of teams. So what is that main disconnect of going from a collective to individual? And we were seeing this trend pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So what is that?
So this is one of those things that I think my answer for the craft beer community is going to be different, because I think that there is something fundamentally social about craft beer. One of the things that I observed in my research was that part of the ritual of drinking beer is sharing. Is saying like, oh yeah, have you tried this? Like, oh yeah, and like oh, this beer is good, and like talking about it and like sharing around, and like that is fundamentally social. Like we even talk about the craft beer community. Like that's part of the idea, is like this is something that is shared with other people. I was fascinated during the pandemic. I was going to set out to interview people in the craft beer community to see like what happens to the craft beer when we're no longer allowed to hang out. Nobody ever. I set up 30 interviews and nobody showed up. So yeah.
Well, takeout.
Yeah.
The packaged.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, I was buying stuff from Switchard all the time. And the delivery.
Yeah.
Aspect.
$10 growler fill.
But in those settings, were you drinking alone, or was it like? I'm not meaning to out you. Go on. No.
Maybe like curated buttons coming over
Yeah.
or in spaces.
Yeah.
And just, but yeah, it was getting takeout,
Yeah.
getting it delivered so that we could go.
But it was still about community. It was still about, so yeah.
In that same vein, like we had a lot of very, very strict rules where I was living during COVID. You couldn't meet, the government had people calling each other. I was in a different country. But we would have virtual meetups where people would drink craft beer, and we would all order our beer in advance so we knew what they were like. We'd have the same thing, or you'd order from a specific place every week.
We all have the same thing, you could cheers.
Or we would sit in a park in chairs.
Something that I've encountered, I don't know exactly how this ties into this, but I think that it may be tangentially related, and it's just a fascinating thing. In most of my research, when I was looking at craft beer, the craft beer community, it was this really intense focus on tasting and exploring and kind of like the classiness of it. I discovered there's an entire subculture of craft beer, specifically in Alabama. It's when I talked to some of my friends from back, I'm originally from Alabama, of beer chugging. And there are people that get together, they will get a $80 bottle of like rare beer, and then they will go and record themselves just chugging the entire bottle. I did a beer exchange with one of my friends from back home, and they sent me some Alabama beers, and I sent them a Dark Lord Day beer, which is a hard beer to get. And then I found out that this guy chugged it, and I was like, I am never sharing another beer with you. I'm not giving you this. But that is, it's a completely, this is when the pretentious, I actually am pretentious. That's what it's showing. But yeah.
You talked about gender.
Yeah.
Are there other identity positions that you feel like have like a significant like difference? Like I know there's like lots of articles about how Gen Z is drinking less beer.
Yeah. So my research, I finished my dissertation in 2020, and I think I started, it was a long time, but yeah, I think I started it around like 2014. And so I don't personally have data on that as of yet, but I've read probably the ssimilar kind of articles where there is a fundamental shift. But part of that has to do with that, with some few exceptions, and in a lot of ways, I think that the craft beer scene that we used to have died. Like it's just not the same. It's not the same that it was anymore. A lot of like the flagship breweries got bought out by InBev. And we saw this decrease in the styles. Again, one of the reasons why I'm doing my best to market but one of the reasons I love Heartwork is like I'm able to get beers that are not just hazies. You'll go to craft breweries and it'll be like 20 beers on tap. And you're like, yes. And it's like, wait a minute, these are all the same beer, right? like give me some variety. I love a hazy, but I would like to have other things as well. And so I think that I think that the craft beer movement lost a lot of steam because it shot itself in the foot, right? There are other factors involved in that. I think that Gen Z is probably in a lot of ways, less social because of the pandemic and because of the lockdowns and stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on there, yeah.
Kind of related, but what role does newness, like this is something I've never had before, play into that? Because I remember when craft beer started.
Yes.
And then when Function came to town.
Yeah.
Cool. And Heartwork, I think, carries on that.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how that plays in.
I would say that there's definitely an element of that, especially like early on where it was like this new thing. And it used to be like it was like hidden knowledge, or like, obscure knowledge. Like, oh no, I drink a beer that's you pay $5 for, right? They're like, whoa. Yeah. And you used to see it specifically with the sour beer, the rise of sour beers. There was a time when sour beers, and I think to a certain degree they're still high prestige, but like Upland was one of the first breweries in the US that actually ventured into sour beers. And at the time, in order to get a bottle of their sour beers, you had to win a lottery. You had to enter in a lottery, and then you had to win the lottery, and then you had to show up and wait in line. It was very, very hard to get one of those beers. And there weren't that many, one of the issues with sour beers is that because you're using bacteria, if you do enough of them, it's going to infect your facilities. And so you're stuck brewing that. So there weren't a lot of places that were willing to do that. And so there was a certain kind of status that was attached to that. They become a lot more popular now, and so you can still find them, but I think that a lot of the status is gone from that, yeah. Anything else? Well, we can stop and we can just start drinking. If you have other questions, feel free to come up and talk to me. Or if you just want to chat about beer, I will sit here. I've got a lot of drinking to do. So I'm happy to talk to you. Thank you all so much for attending this. This was great. Thank you. And I can go to my da-da-da there.